Alright, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back. I see y'all in my comments requesting this video over and over again, and I'm just here to give the people what they want. So we're doing it again. TikTok to Show My Therapist has there's like 19 of these videos on YouTube, so I don't anticipate that this is gonna dry up anytime soon. So we're gonna make another one of those today, and that's it. Alright, cool. Let's watch it. Okay, here we go. Yes, see, and okay, this is why I make a conscious effort to be my normal self on camera, because I think a lot of people don't understand that therapists really do swear. It's not like when you were a kid and you're, like seeing your teacher outside of school was like really weird and awkward and whatever. Like, therapists are normal people in the same way that your teacher when you were a kid was a normal person. And so yeah, like I've seen some of the comments too of people being like, I wouldn't vibe with you because you swear, you're like really blunt and upfront, and like that's cool also. There are lots of different therapists with lots of different perspectives, but I promise you that we are not all like wet blanket, like limp noodle people who don't like swear and like, like we're normal. We just want to be normal.
One wall say to the other wall, meet you at the corner. Now that we got all the dads here, I need one.
It's so simple. But yet people find this fascinating when they come into my house, and they also think that I am a sociopath.
I don't even know what to say about that, so we're just gonna breeze past it.
Why is my mom here?
This is very common, and I know that for a lot of people, talking about trauma that your parents have inflicted or like caused in your life feels like a trope and like sort of a meme. Like, especially this happens when women want to talk about their dads. They're like, I know I have daddy issues, and like it's not embarrassing, it's not weird. Everyone has wounds from their parents. Parenting is inherently imperfect, and none of us will escape parenthood without accidentally wounding our children. None of us will escape childhood without accidentally or intentionally, depending on your circumstances, being wounded by your parents. It's very normal. It makes a lot of sense because I've talked about this before, but none of us are ever done growing. None of us are perfect people. And so of course there are like trauma wounds that your parents have. There's generational trauma. There are like problematic traits or like negative tendencies that people have that get, sort of projected onto children. Please don't feel like embarrassed or ashamed to talk about this stuff in therapy, because it is very normal. This happens to more people than you think. You are not a meme or a trope. This does not mean anything about you as a person if you have trauma stuff that you need to work through that your parents caused.
I do not have daddy issues. I just like boys who treat me like they don't want me, just like my...
See, very common. But I know that people talk about this from this perspective of like, I don't want to have daddy issues, like it's not me, and like a lot of people have daddy issues, and it's not a shameful thing. It's not weird. It also doesn't mean that if you're a female identifying person who has daddy issues that you're like running around fucking anything that moves. Like, trauma and disorganized attachment to our primary caregivers can manifest in a whole bunch of different symptoms and presentations.
You know what? I deserve the biggest apology to myself for putting up with shit that I did not deserve. So, I'm really sorry, and I love you, okay?
Okay, I know she's joking, but this can actually be really impactful. Essentially, this is positive self-talk, like positive self-affirmations. Sometimes it is useful to apologize to ourselves.
Look, she's crying. Do you hear her crying? Like we care. I don't give a
I'm not gonna take them all ganging up on me and being mean over what?
See, I guess this compilation is just like the childhood wounds TikToks to show your therapist, but yeah, there's a lot of talk in this one about childhood wounds and like talk about being abused by your family of origin, which again is more common than people think it is.
I see a lot of memories were had here.
yes.
Yeah.
20 years almost.
You have a dad, that's cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
What's
you.
that like?
You really want to see it?
I don't think
This is funny, but I also just remembered something that I want to talk about from the last TikTok. So the video is this girl talking to her stuffed animal and like sort of a joke about how she has nobody to talk to. But actually that I think brings up an interesting point. There is an activity called rubber ducking that can be useful when you don't have a safe person to talk to. The phrase comes from the idea of a person placing a rubber duck on like a desk or a table and talking to the rubber duck. Even though this seems like something that a person who is unwell would do, it can actually be really useful because the process of verbalizing what's going on and how you're feeling and like what's happening inside your mind is really helpful to untangle all of the stuff. That's usually the feedback that people give for their like early therapy appointments. It's like, oh my gosh, I felt so much better after I said everything out loud. And like, yes, that's the point. It's very helpful to have an objective person hold space for you to just talk about the stuff. And so if you're not able to go to therapy or like that's not really an option for you right now, sometimes talking to an inanimate object can serve a similar purpose. Not that that is in any way a replacement for therapy or clinical services, obviously, but again, it can be a useful coping strategy. This is why a lot of people also tend to do this thing where we rehearse conversations and we talk to a person that's not there, like when we're driving somewhere, we're in our car. That's where that comes from, because it's very helpful to just process stuff verbally. Just really quick, this sound rocketed me back to like March of 2020 and I'm like having flashbacks. TikTok of all time. Yes, there are a lot of coping strategies that people use that are maybe not the most helpful. I've seen this person's account before, the Truth Doctor. She's like all over TikTok and like Instagram and social media generally, and she typically has pretty good advice. The only thing about this that like hurts my feelings or like hurts my heart a little bit is when people call them negative coping strategies. Typically when someone is coping in a way that they know is not helpful to them, there's already a little bit of shame around that. So personally, I find it helpful to reframe the language there to be about the coping strategy being unhelpful to you. Yeah, those prolong your suffering ultimately. And so we, at least with my clients, I try to reframe that to ask the question like, okay, so yes, this is helpful to you in the moment, but like, how can we help long-term you? How can we hook up future you by using a different coping strategy that won't manifest in these like not so helpful outcomes later? Just the use of the words like negative or unhealthy, stuff like that, can sort of perpetuate this idea that it's like shameful or wrong, which I think is kind of unfair because a lot of times people don't know, you know, like I made a TikTok talking about how I didn't learn what healthy coping strategies were until I went to grad school to be a therapist. So, you know, there's a lot of information lacking in this area. And I think it is important for us to be kind to ourselves and each other about how we're coping, because oftentimes people cope in the best way that they know how. And if we don't have tools, we're just sort of flailing around, you know, which is cool. That's not shameful. It's not wrong. You're just like trying to do the damn thing.
Who are you? I'm the flower. Oh, who are you?
I'm the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, are you the Jabberwock?
You have no idea, motherfucker.
I think these are from, like, this is an older video, so I think these are all from like the early part of quarantine where people were talking about being locked down with co-occurring like mental illness and substance abuse disorders and eating disorders and like lots of things all sort of worlds colliding in a way that was very unfun for people.
Ha ha, laugh, funny.
That's funny?
To me, it's funny. Yeah, do you have a sense of humor?
So yes, but also I think this is an important thing or maybe like a useful thing to talk about, because oftentimes we will deflect uncomfortable emotions with humor. It is very common where someone will tell me something that they, you know, are like hurt or wounded by, or something that's like traumatic, and then they go and like laugh it off or like make a joke about it, which is very understandable. I appreciate the jokes because they're usually really funny. But if you find yourself unable to sit with that emotion, that might be something useful to talk with a therapist about, because deflecting the childhood trauma with humor and like sort of avoiding it is not necessarily helpful to you in the long run. That emotion needs to go somewhere. We need to feel that and process that so that ultimately we can move along.
I'm glad you brought it up because I've been dying to talk about it for a fucking hot minute. First of all,
so yes, this is a very common thing that happens. It's not abnormal for a therapist to notice an issue with a client well before the client notices. Typically, I don't bring it up, at least, because I think that process of discovering it on your own is very important. If I do the work for you, then you're not ultimately learning how to spot, you know, other issues that are showing up for you in the future after you've discharged and you're not using my services anymore. So I usually let people come to those realizations on their own.
It is what it is.
It is not what it is.
Yeah, no, that's not what it is. If you are struggling to function without excessive amounts of caffeine, and especially without excessive amounts of medication that was not prescribed to you, that's an issue that's useful to talk with a therapist about. And again, not because it's shameful, not because it's like awful or you're a terrible person, but because it is totally possible for you to live a life that feels much more fulfilling, much happier, much easier. And there's a lot of adjustment that can be done in therapy and with psychiatry. I don't know shit all about medication, so please don't ask me questions about it. But there's a lot of adjustment that can be done there to help you just feel like more at peace as I sit here and drink good coffee.
All right, let's see what we got here. It's not too bad in here. What the fuck? Saw, dude. What's going on? What the fuck is that? What? How long has he been here?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I forgot he was in here, so,
This is not like uncommon. So the sort of idea of like repressed memories or like forgotten traumas is a little bit controversial, because there is some compelling research about how therapists who previously were under the impression that we could uncover or recover a person's repressed trauma or like forgotten traumas, what actually happened was those therapists just accidentally implanted traumatic memories that didn't exist. I don't have all the details about this. I'll do some digging and see if I can't find the study. I haven't looked at it since grad school, but yeah, so it's very dangerous for a therapist to participate in this process of like hypnotizing a person to find repressed memories, because we can very easily implant them on accident. And so like this is something that I shy away from. I don't want to participate in that because I don't want to hurt anybody. However, the idea of repressed trauma is not fully based in fiction. It is possible for people to repress memories and to not remember things, and for those to come up later on. This can happen in like a lot of different means. Sometimes this happens by just verbally processing the trauma that you do remember, and then, you know, as you start to heal and your brain, you know, you feel like it's safer, you will start to remember some things or like remember more detail about a traumatic event. This, I think, is something that's really important to take with a grain of salt, because I don't want to like make statements about other therapists, but like the idea of recovering repressed memories or like sort of forgotten childhood trauma is, again, it's just very dangerous. I almost had a heart attack, y'all. I was like, this man is not about to expose people. He didn't. Yes, that's why I don't make videos talking about the craziest story I've ever heard. Like, that's illegal. I can't do that. All of your client information and the stories that you tell me, the things that you share with me are protected. legally, morally, ethically, I am obligated to keep all of that information private. I actually have a whole video talking about confidentiality in therapy. I will put it up there. Is it up there?
That's your right side.
It's somewhere. I'm gonna put it up in the card so you guys can watch it. There are lots of like limitations and confidentiality things, but like whatever. Yes, we can't talk about your shit.
Came down to it and I was able to go back in time to my birth, I would let my umbilical cord wrap back around my neck and just choke me out.
Here's a lesson my mother taught me. Don't cry, sweetheart. Nobody cares. And that's how you become a therapist.
Okay, so this is kind of a real thing. There's sort of like a joke in the therapy community that like a lot of therapists are sort of like, I think some people call them like wounded warriors or whatever, which is like very cringy. But typically people who become interested in mental health and want to help people heal from mental illness are people who have experienced mental illness. So yeah, maybe that's also something useful to know, that typically when you go to therapy, your therapist has also worked through usually at least something. And so that helps us a lot in understanding where you're coming from and empathizing with what you're going through, and also with giving you actually useful and practical help. Yeah.
Okay, now what do we say when this happens to us?
You could have had a bad bitch, non-committal, helped you with your career, just a little. You're supposed to hold me down, but you're holding me back, and that's the sound of me not calling you back.
I've talked about this before. I've actually had a client burst out in, actually this has happened several times. I've had people like sing, and like people, you know, it's not uncommon for people to share artwork and poetry and things that they've written, music and songwriting, and like lots of different things in therapy. The creative process is very helpful actually for us to process trauma. But like, I don't know. If a client burst out singing like that, first of all, I'd be like, shh, there's people. There's like other people renting offices here. But second of all, I'd be like, okay, like I'll be here until you're done. I don't know. I'm sure that there are therapists who would be like annoyed and disappointed or something if you started singing, but like, this is just funny to me.
Do that, I'm gonna do that. If you do that, I'm gonna do that. If you do this, I'm gonna do that.
What if I just did it?
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, this is accurate. It's very frustrating to me when people talk about trauma reactivation and act like, just get over it, don't deal with it, it's not that big of a deal. Like, fucking yes it is. We've talked about this before, there's like a whole bodily response that happens when you're traumatized. Your brain physiologically changes. We respond to trauma in a very like intense way. So telling somebody who has PTSD to just like get over it, it's like telling somebody with epilepsy to just like try harder to not have seizures. Like, fuck you, that's not how it works. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that you have to do, and like just getting over it is not, that's not what it is.
Just letting you know, that way older guy that you've been talking to doesn't actually like you because you're mature for your age. It's because you're easy to manipulate.
Why are we holding like a large barrel of food product? I don't know what's happening here. Yes, though, if you are a younger person, like especially if you are in the like 17, 18, 19 age category, and somebody in their like 20s plus is very interested in you and wants to date you, that's not normal. It's not normal for someone in their mid to late 20s to want to date a teenager. There's a whole lot of cognitive and emotional development that has to happen there before you become like a more fully fleshed out adult human being. And so, you know, somebody who's like pushing 30 should not want to be sexually and emotionally involved with a child.
Sis, you almost dropped this. Go on, put it on. Yes. Don't drop it again.
I'm a big fan of these like aggressively supportive and positive videos. I know that they're like sort of silly, but like I like these. I think they're cute.
If I have one more motherfucking guy go, OMG, why are you single? Bro, I'm mentally unstable. I'll burn down your fucking house. That was a little too aggressive. But like, seriously.
Oh, if this is where you're at in life, I strongly want to encourage you to go to therapy.
Whenever people meet me in real life, they're always like, wow, you're so mature for your age. And I'm like, thanks. It's the childhood trauma.
Okay, so this is a feedback that I have gotten a lot in my lifetime. The like mature for your age thing. I was a very high achieving child. I was a very adult like child. It's because I was parentified. Yeah, if you get this feedback a lot, odds are that there was maybe some role confusion or enmeshment or like childhood trauma happening that caused you to be different than all of the other kids.
At the end of my therapy session today, my therapist just, she just sighed and she went, well, that was a lot.
I will say things like this, people will be like, wow, that's a lot, or like, wow, that's super heavy. That's heavy is like probably my most used phrase in therapy. But like, I mean, I hope it's not coming off that way. Maybe it is. I guess maybe this is a good moment for me to grow as a therapist. Just as an aside, first of all, your therapist really should not be saying stuff to you like that, because it's not your job to like shield your therapist from the shit. Like, this is what we have chosen to do for a living. We have extensive training in how to distance ourselves from our clients' emotional stuff in an appropriate way. That's why boundaries in therapy are so important. We're not supposed to be emotionally invested in your shit. So please don't feel the need to like hold back or like try and save your therapist. That's not what it's for. Our job is to help you grow, and you can only do that if you're being honest. But if your therapist does say something like this to you, or says something that hurts your feelings or like upsets you, please don't be afraid to voice that with them, because odds are they didn't mean it that way. And it's important for us, like I just talked about, for us to grow as therapists and improve the way that we speak to and about our clients. If your therapist gets mad at you or like tries to gaslight you, get the fuck out of there. Your therapist should be willing to hold space for you to criticize or critique their behavior, or especially just to voice how you feel about something that we've said or done. That's our job. And again, we're not supposed to be emotionally invested in your shit. We're not supposed to like try and be friends with you. As much as I have a fondness for my clients and I do really love my job, I'm not any of my clients' friends. I can't be. That doesn't give me the appropriate space to actually help them work through their shit. And so I'm not personally invested in whether they like me as a person or not. That's not the point. It's not about me, it's about you. Anyways, all of that to say, if this does happen to you, please feel free to voice that, because it's really important that you feel safe and not judged in therapy. Okay, well, now that I'm out of breath, that's the end of the video. That surprised me. I thought we had more to go, but I guess we're done now. I really love doing these. I'm glad that you guys like these. So, you know, I'm going to keep making more. You guys don't necessarily have to request them in the comments. I promise they're coming. I just try not to clump them together too much so that we can get some other content in and you guys can get a nice little breather. So yeah, that's that. If you guys like the video and leave me some comments and talk with me, because I love chatting with you guys. Subscribe to the channel to see more content like this and to watch all of our other fun videos, and then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.